Hello,
Hello,
everyone,
everyone.
and Stephen O'Deal here again, and welcome back to day two of Free Yourself from Shame in 5 days. And if you're joining us here live, go ahead and say hello in the chat, or please put any questions, comments that you have live in the chat. And if you're catching on the recording, please just put all questions or comments in the comment section below, and we will take a look at those and answer all of those. So,
Yep.
yesterday, we kicked off the workshop with a deeper dive into looking at what shame is. And now, today, we're going to be picking up from there and taking a look at the roots of shame. So, Odile, I hope I've given you enough of an intro there. Are you ready to dive in?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Steve. So, as we were saying yesterday, shame is not about what you're experiencing now. So, we tend to think of I feel shame or guilt, or I don't want people to know. I'm worried what people will think, and we're looking at our current experiences, or maybe even the past, but they're specific. We think, oh well, I was divorced, so we think the shame is tied up with that, with recent events or experiences from our adult life. The truth is that those are the sort of the branches and leaves that we're looking at above the ground. Where it's coming from is the roots, which is the original childhood memories. Now, an example of how that can seem bizarre is shame around a divorce, of course, doesn't necessarily, the link to childhood is not necessarily obvious, especially if, say you come from a family where your parents didn't get divorced, but you got divorced and you feel ashamed. It may be something unrelated to that topic. It may be a completely different topic. It may be something like being made to feel embarrassed in school because you forgot your homework or something. It can be completely unrelated logically. So, as we were saying yesterday, the conscious mind tries to make sense of things. So we consciously go, okay, that is the same as that, or that makes sense as a link, that's the same sort of thing. But the unconscious part of the brain has no ability to do that. The unconscious part of the brain cannot use logical reason, can't judge something as unrealistic, so it and can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. So the unconscious part of the brain may well have linked um, your let's say your father leaving you, leaving your mother and yourself, to an experience now being ashamed of your money situation. It doesn't have to make logical sense. However, with the detective work that we're going to take you through today, you will find those links, and then you'll go, oh, I see the link now. Just because you don't see it on the surface doesn't mean it's not there. So the basic detective work that we use is starts with three questions. The first one is, how do you know? So how do you know you feel ashamed or guilty or bad, or that shame has been stopping you from whatever it is you want to do or manifest? Number two, how does that feel? So noticing the feelings in your body, the emotions you've got. And then number three, where did you feel that feeling in your childhood? And most importantly, it may be a completely different topic. May not be the same topic, but go with what comes up for you. And then what you're going to do, we're going to do a deep dive into those questions in a minute. But what you're going to do is you're going to make a list of the childhood memories that come up, and without filtering them, and also very importantly, without going into them. So there is no need to dive into those memories. There's no need to remember the details. You're going to just notice, oh, it was that event, and then make a note on a piece of paper or in a book, um, or on a computer, digitally, whatever. Um, that is just a couple of words or a phrase that reminds you of the memory, so that it's only for your own reference. So you don't need to describe it. It's not for anybody else. So you're just and an age. So for example, granny, kitchen, 8 years old. That's literally all you need. So you're going to do that. Very importantly, do not do trauma on your own. So we will be going into changing these memories tomorrow, and we'll reiterate about the trauma. We have Remmert method practitioners that can help you if you have things, trauma and that kind of thing. We'll put a link to that in the description. So now that you've kind of got an overview of where we're going, let's take a deep dive into these questions. And the first one of how do I know? And I'm going to hand over to Steve because Steve has a great explanation for this.
Yeah, thanks. I, I know that when I was first kind of introduced to this work, kind of getting started with this work for myself, um, that question of how do I know, um, is like, I don't know, I just know. It's like, how do I know that I'm feeling shame? How do I know that there's shame around this issue? Um, and I think that, we have a or our brain has a conscious knowing of that. It's like, well, it's just shame, of course. Um, but the point of this work and what we're doing in this work is trying to tune into what is there at that feeling level. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, that what's going on in the brain and body physiologically is that the we're experiencing something. Our brain is producing neurochemistry in the moment around that, and that's having an impact on different organs, different places in our body that our brain is picking up. We are feeling something in the moment, and over time, we have learned to interpret or identify that concoction of feeling as shame or anger or happiness, whatever the emotion. Our brain has put that together, and it's like we're not even necessarily in tune with that anymore. We know the emotion. So what we're doing in this process is allowing ourselves to get out of the conscious mind, that knowing shame in this case, and can I begin to tune into what or how am I experiencing that in my body? And when you're first starting to do this, you may actually not have any idea of how am I experiencing this in my body? Is it like, well, um, and I know that through doing this work and understanding the science and the neuroscience of this a little bit better, knowing that these neurochemicals have an impact on individual organs and that kind of thing, it's like, okay, my ability to understand and to be able to feel how cortisol is interacting with my liver at this moment is like I can't do that kind of thing. But what we're doing is we're just beginning to set that intention. It's recognizing that there's something going on. There's a physical feeling going on in my body, and all I'm doing is setting that question there. It's like, well, how am I experiencing this in my body? And that is enough of a gate for us to get started. And just setting that intention and uh, beginning that process. And the more that you do this, the more that you begin to start to become aware of, oh, there's a tightness here, or I'm feeling something in the back of my head, or even though those feelings may be incredibly subtle, we'll start to pick up that a little bit more. So it's just learning to trust yourself and just begin to step into that process. Even if you're not feeling anything in the moment, set that intention. How am I experiencing this in my body? And the other bit that we've learned over time, I've learned through experience over time, is that we just need to begin to start tuning into what is that first thing that's popping to mind. So set that intention. How am I feeling this in my body? And what's popping to mind. And it may be that a particular memory of something is popping to mind. It may be uh, a snippet of a picture, or there may be a word there for you. Whatever that is that's popping up, see if you can make a note of that, because that is also very important in terms of helping us to follow follow those leads back to what are at the root of um, the shame in this case. Um, is there more that I wanted to say about that, Odile? I've sort of lost the flow of that right there.
No, I think that was it. I think you've done a great job. And so I wanted to give an example
Mm,
of how do I know. So here's an example. I know that shame is a problem for me because when I think of posting on social media, I feel fear. I'm frightened of what people are going to think. I think people will judge me. So that's how I know shame is a problem for me. Or I know that shame is a problem for me because when I think about approaching someone who I'm interested in to ask them out, I feel frozen.
mm,
Or when I think of, you know, going to the gym, I feel I'm feel embarrassed at what people are going to think of the way I look, or that I'm, not strong enough, or whatever it is.
mhm,
So those are examples of how do I know shame is a problem for me because when I then X. So when X then Y, something like that. So that's that. And then the second question, how does that feel? So the example would be to use the example of social media. When I think about posting on social media, I feel frightened about what people are going to think of me. They're going to judge me. So the feeling, how does that feel? The answer to that is fear. I feel frightened. I feel um, exposed, or whatever those feelings are. And then when in your childhood did you feel that same feeling? It may not be the same topic. And so then just go with the first thing. So I'm feeling this fear right now. So I'm thinking of posting on social media, and I'm noticing, like Steve said, I'm noticing in my body, I'm feeling this fear. What's as I think of my childhood, first thing that pops up, a teacher, my father, my pet, we moved house. And like I said, it may not make logical sense at first. And then just make a note of that. So moved house, 7 years old, next. Right. So, and make a note of all of the things that you can think of that come up, again, even if it doesn't make sense. And then tomorrow we'll go through through the process of changing those. And of course, again, don't do trauma on your own, of course.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Is that everything, Steve? Was that?
Well,
It's a
I
very
think,
simple process, this.
yeah,
Not a lot to say
and
about.
I know that sometimes that trying to find trying to find those connections,
Mm-hmm.
it it can be like, well, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how to get started with that, or I'm not sure where to go with that. And I know that that could be an opportunity uh, to engage, with a little bit of help. Sometimes we just can't see the blind spots, or, we can't find those kind of things. So if that feels like you're having a bit of an issue or a bit of a struggle with that, reach out in the comments, or know that that's the kind of thing that, we also work with people one to one, you know, helping when it feels like you can't figure out how to do that and you need a little bit of extra help. That's what we do and why we're here, um and that kind of thing. There was another, yeah, and I think it was just thinking about the making those connections that, um and I know that for me it's always been a it's been very surprising oftentimes that the the links or the references that are there in my past, in my childhood, that were the foundation of the shame. Um, it's like it's one of those kind of moments like, are you kidding me? Because it's like it's like this monster has grown bigger than it's like, wow, the shame that I'm feeling and the way that it's impacting my life feels like this really big monster. And then to recognize, what were the original roots of that? Where did that come from? And it's like it can feel much different, or it feels like your conscious mind wants to almost edit that out. It's like, well, it couldn't be that. It doesn't feel like it's a big deal. But
Absolutely.
some of these things, it's like my conscious mind, from the example that I was giving yesterday, having been born with, what probably to the conscious mind would seem like a relatively insignificant birth defect. But that that foundation for me, it just kept building and building on top of that. So
Hmm.
the feeling, uh, the references keep building on the shame. So as you're doing this work, as you are looking back, that I know that oftentimes when I'm working with clients, going back to the original reference may not be the first step, or we may not get there in one go. It's more of a sense of like, okay, what's this reminding me of? This feeling right now. What's it reminding me of? And it's like, well, I'm thinking about something that happened 3 years ago. Okay,
Hmm.
that's a good start. Thinking about that for a moment and then just kind of allowing yourself to touch that memory. Again, we don't want to spend a lot of time bringing up all of the details. You just have a knowing of that incident. But what we know is that however we're reacting to something in the moment, our brain only knows how to react to that because of previous references. So if something is happening 2 or 3 years ago, what we can know is that there is something that is previous to that. So just allow yourself to kind of what's the word? The stepping stones, or you're just kind of walking it back to where as far back as you can go with this.
Hmm.
So knowing that something that happened in high school or when you were a teenager, it's like it may be that there's some powerful stuff there. Something significant or traumatic happened then that needs to be dealt with. But in every case that I've ever worked with, there's always going to be something that is preceding that, is going back to early childhood. And that's one of the hallmarks of the work that we're doing, is that we want to go back and find
Hmm.
those original childhood, those implicit childhood memories that built that reaction in the first place. Is that
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for those who feel overwhelmed at the idea, I've got too many memories, just go with the ones that come to mind first, the earliest ones, or the ones that come to mind first. So a reminder that when we work on these, the brain will automatically update the rest. We don't have to manually address all of them. So tomorrow we'll go into that a little bit more. And I think that's it for today. Of course, let us know your questions. We love answering questions. We've worked with a lot of people, so we have a lot of tips and ideas and techniques that will help. So just let us know what your questions are, and we'll do our best to answer those as they come up. So we will then see you tomorrow for day 3 to start making these changes.